the guys from Ping, they've kind of shown me how much the equipment matters.
I just love that I can hit any shot I kind of want.
We're going to be able to tell some fun stories about what goes on here to help golfers play better golf.
Welcome back to the Ping Proving Grounds podcast. I'm Shane Bacon. That is Marty Jertson. And this is a very, very important thing to tell you off the bat. If you're listening to the podcast, pause the podcast for a moment and then open it back up on YouTube. Because I will say, Marty, it's going to be a visual medium today. Rob Griffin is with us. We are in the archive room. Rob, this is where I would say the magic happens, but the magic has been happening for a long time. How long have you been at Ping, and how many golf clubs do you feel like are in the archive room right now?
Well, I've been at Ping since 1986. I did leave for 3 years, but I came back. And when I started, I was the company's photographer. So I shot all kinds of stuff for the company, tour events. I thought I was going to shoot a lot of tour events. Turned out I shot more product than anything. But then I left in 2002. I came back in 2005. My hair had turned white, so they said I could be the historian.
That was all it took on the resume. It's gotten a little wider. You can do. You can get the archive room.
You can have that.
What do the clubs date back to? I mean, you're talking like I was looking around this before we got going, and I was picking out clubs I played when I was a junior golfer.
Right.
What year are some of these clubs dating back to?
Well, as far back as maybe late 58, 1959.
Unbelievable.
And how many there are in here, I don't know exactly, but
you can guess. We're going to count.
Guess. Yeah, there's more than a few thousand.
Okay.
And we actually have 3 other rooms over in another building, and in one of those rooms is full of clubs. So there's probably.
What year do they push you to that room, like on an office space situation?
Oh.
Pushing you down the ranks in another room.
No, but that's over there where there's no heater cooling.
That's right. Okay. You don't want to be there in the summer.
You don't want to be there in the summer, but that's where most of the wooden woods are actually, which is not a good, maybe not the best thing, but that's where most of the wooden woods are.
Rob, I think one thing that us engineers have heard a lot of stories about through the family, through John Solheim, when we're working on product development, is about Carsten, the originator. Give a little insight to the listener about him, maybe some of the fun I love looking at some of the fun prototypes that he made or welded together, tried, had his technicians go make real quickly. Give us a little insight into Carsten and what made him tick.
Well, Carsten's whole thing was he was trying to make the game of golf easier for the average player. That was his whole goal in life, was to build a golf club that would make the game easier to play. He was a great problem solver, always trying to think how to improve his golf club or design a new putter, things like that. So, there's a driver up here that's a square, stainless steel square driver. And, he just wanted to see will that work? And I know when he was working on that with Greg Schmidt, one of our engineers, Greg told him, he says, Carsten, that's going to cowbell. And sure enough, it did. But Carsten said, "No, it's okay. Let's try it anyway." And they tried it, and sure enough, it made a cowbell sound. It was pretty loud.
But you're talking about a square driver that was built in the 90s,
or probably sometime in the early 90s.
In the early 90s. So you think about the innovation of golf and how we go through these ebbs and flows with certain designs. Marty's been so influential in that over the last 20, 25 years, but some of these things that you have on these racks, you're showing me an upside-down putter from years ago. A lot of the ideas were just simply, will this work or will this not work?
Yeah, let's see what happens. Alan even told me one time that when Alan had an idea, Carsten would ask him, have you tried doing it just backwards of that? Have you tried doing that 180 degrees just to see what happens?
Yeah, I think Carsten was the originator of what we're still doing today, which is trying things, fail, and learn from your failures, right? And he really started us on that journey, Rob. And it is fun to look at all the, you could call it a failure, but quote unquote, failures that are learnings that we've, continue to build upon.
Right. Oh, absolutely. No, he wasn't afraid to fail. He wasn't afraid for something not to work.
How did the process of starting an archive room begin? Because I can only imagine you had a lot of these things laying around somewhere, and you might as well display what you're saying, 70 years of golf clubs in this room.
Right. Well, the way the original idea of this started in the mid 90s, and we had a historian. Her name was Dawn Wingert, and she had actually been John's assistant, administrative assistant for quite a while. And so she became the first historian, and she did a lot of great work. I fall back on stuff that she's found, and she kind of did the initial organization of it. And a lot of the putters that I have are because she went up to shipping and grabbed a bunch of putters.
We need this for the archive room.
Right. Like these white putters over here, which we didn't sell we hardly ever sold. I'm almost positive that she went up to shipping and they were up there and she says, I'll take all those. Stuff like that. So she really got us started. She's the one that got it started. So much of what I have done since then, I've fallen back on stuff that she had done.
Yeah. Rob, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't know about is how influential Louise was in the entire company, especially some of the naming of the Anser putter.
Right.
She was a lab technician for in the research industry, aerodynamics.
Actually, she worked for Convair, and she worked in the wind tunnel, and her job title was computer.
Just computer.
Computer.
There you go.
She was a math whiz, and so her job was to take the data that these engineers got from the wind tunnel and to somehow or other condense it into something they could really use.
Yeah.
And that's one of the jobs she had. And then later on, when they were in New York, she actually worked for a government agency, the Dairy Board or something like that. And so, she was very smart. In terms of Carsten and Louise, I always tell people this, that if Carsten had married a different young lady, we probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
She was that important to what we did. She came to work every day, just like Carsten did. And she was more the personal touch with the employees and things like that.
Yep.
And yes, she named some of the putters, including the Anser, famously the Anser putter.
Is the story on that? It was drop a letter to make it
Right.
fit on the putter. Was that how it went?
Yeah. So Carsten came home from the LA Open in January of '66, and Arnold Palmer's putter was the most popular putter out there at the time, the 8802. And so Carsten came home and he told Louise he needed to find an answer to Arnie's putter. So within days, Carsten had a drawing, he had a sample, and he needed to go to the engraver to have the plates engraved to put the name on the putter. This started a few days before he had to go, and he said, I need a name for my putter. And she says, why don't you just call it the Anser, because it's your answer to Arnie's putter. He said, well, that's no name for a putter. So they went back and
one of his few whiffs, by the way, it's considering what that name has done in the lineage of Ping.
Exactly. So they went back and forth a couple of days, and then the morning that he was supposed to go, he had his appointment to go to the engraver. They woke up and, he said, I still need a name for this putter. And she said, I told you, call it the Anser. And he goes, well, that's too long. It won't fit. And she said, well, drop the W. It'll sound the same anyway.
And there you go.
And there you have it. Yeah.
How do you so you're talking initially in terms of archival stuff. It was go grab a club and let's put this to the side so we don't forget about this putter or this prototype. I'm assuming that process is a little bit more computerized, if you will, these days. How do you go about making sure every club from Ping is in the room, every new club gets a spot in your room?
I place an order just like a customer.
Okay.
That's literally what I do, because I had tried other ways. People would say, oh yeah, I can get you that, and it wouldn't show up half the time. And so we just went to the idea of just we'll place an order just like a customer.
And if you need a new driver, do you just place 2? Is that kind of how it goes? You just say, I actually need 2 of those drivers?
For myself,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I got to have just an extra one just in case.
doesn't quite work.
It's not how it goes. They keep an eye on that.
My badge doesn't let me walk out the door with a club.
Marty, when you look around this room, I mean, you see clubs that you designed. I mean, how cool is that to kind of, see your clubs that you started as, mocking on a paper and working on a computer to next to the square driver from the 90s or the white putters that maybe didn't make the team.
Yeah, it's incredible. And one of the funnest projects I had where, coming into the archives and learning and getting the history was working on the Anser iron. So we worked on a forged iron that had a milled cavity in the back, multi-material. And the original Anser iron we're looking at over here, Rob can kind of tell the story of a little bit, is getting some forged blanks, and then Carsten and Alan, I think. Alan worked on milling.
Alan did all the
cavity.
milling.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Alan did all the milling on the forged. They'd get the forged blanks for the 69 irons, which was the first model that they did. They got the heads from Golfcraft.
Yeah.
And Golfcraft became Titleist. But they got the heads from Golfcraft. They'd get them here. Then Alan would mill out the cavities. It had a dual cavity, that one did. And then, to Carsten's design. And then they would had to send the heads back to Golfcraft to be chromed. Then they'd come back here and they'd weigh out the heads and so they could put them into sets.
And that cavity made him more forgiving.
Give him
higher
right.
moment of inertia. That's what I loved about Carsten is A, he was not afraid to try some wild ideas, and B, he thought from a physics-based kind of first principles approach. Rob, I want to go back to that Louise a little bit, working in the wind tunnel, because fast forward to golf club design.
Yes.
I'm looking at the turbulator design that we developed in a wind tunnel.
Right.
And having that kind of in our company DNA. Carsten and John wanted to test drivers for aerodynamics. They thought if we could make it more aerodynamic, a golfer could swing it faster. Tell us the story about developing Woodwoods and testing the driver aerodynamics.
So, when Carsten first decided he was going to build his own wooden wood, you're right. He wanted it to be aerodynamic, swing it faster, hit it farther was his idea, of course. And so he checked into, he had worked on his design, then he checked into having it tested in a wind tunnel. And there was 2 problems. One was it was expensive. The second one was the deal breaker, and that was it was going to be several months before they could get him in line to have it tested. And also, if he had to do a redesign, it's still going to be longer after that. So Carsten was not the most patient person in the world. So he decided he'd figure out how to do his own wind tunnel testing. So what he did is he got a head and he put a short shaft in it, and he attached a spring gauge to it, kind of like you'd weigh a fish with, only probably a little higher tech than that, but a spring gauge like a machinist might use. And he got Alan, and they got in the family car, and they went down to Bell Road down here, which is a few miles north of here. And Alan's job was to drive the car exactly 100 miles an hour. In those days, the only thing out there was the horse track.
Okay.
So Alan's job was to drive the car 100 miles an hour. Carsten would hold the club out the window with the spring gauge and turn it and watch how the gauge moved. Maybe make some notes, I suppose, and then they come back, work on it a little more, and go back and do it again. And so that's how he did his wind tunnel testing. And, I asked Alan, they did this in a Citroen automobile, which Carsten loved Citroen automobiles because they were such high-tech cars for the time. And the one that they used, we believe, maybe had a Maserati engine in it. But Alan said it's great to get to drive the family car 100 miles an hour, except that if he didn't drive it exactly 100 miles an hour, Carsten would yell at him.
Rob, do you look at Marty and you think he needs to do more of this when he's kind of testing out some of his new age stuff? Like maybe get behind a wheel of a car, get on a bicycle or a motorcycle and just see how fast he can go with the club in hand, or do you like the way he goes about his business these days?
As far as I know, he knows what he's doing.
Perfect.
As far as I know.
Rob, we have so many unbelievable items. I know you've picked out a few that you really like, and a reminder to everybody, watch this part of the podcast because it's going to be important. But do you have any clubs that you can pull out, or any of the ones that that you've pulled aside that are really notable?
Yeah, so I thought we'd talk about, since the Anser is the, best putter in the history of golf. Let me get all my little show and tell items.
I got good news for you. We can edit this.
Good.
It's not a live show. You can grab all you want.
So, Carsten, like I say, went to the LA Open, and so this is the hand drawing he did for the Anser putter, the first drawing.
This is his drawing.
This is his drawing. He did this drawing. And when I first saw the drawing back in the 90s, when they found it in his desk drawer, and they brought it to me so I could photograph it and make copies. And when I first saw it, I thought, that doesn't look like an Anser. It looks like the Ping Pal to me. And then his second drawing, he made 2 days later, and it's dated and signed.
Yep, January 14th, 1966.
Right. And then witness the 15th. And on this, so now it's starting to look a little different, the drawing does. And on this drawing, it says sample made the 14th, January 14th. And so this is the sample that he made.
So this is from 66. I mean, this is
Right.
the January 14th,
January,
1966.
66. So this started out as a Ping 69 putter, this head, and it even was drilled for a shaft already.
Mhm.
So he just took one that was already drilled, and then he modified it and brazed or welded this Anser style hosel onto it. So that's the prototype for the Anser.
Is this the most mimicked golf club in the world? Is that fair to say?
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think easily. And unfortunately, nowadays a lot of people don't realize that Carsten invented the Anser design.
That's why we have the podcast.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this.
That's why we do
We can
this.
yell at
Right.
people.
And then, so this is like one of the very first castings of the Anser putter. And we know it's one of the first ones because the hosel is much thinner than the Anser is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You can see that. And I think when they got their first casting, Carsten realized that when he put the shaft in and the ball bearing, and he had to drive the ball bearing in, it would bend this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Marty, as someone that does this now, for your life's work, if you will, what is it like looking at things like this from the 60s, thinking what it must have been like, for Carsten and any designer out there having to go about their business in the 60s trying to make golf clubs?
I think in talking to Rob about the timeline of when Carsten went out and realized there was a problem to solve, looking at his brain was thinking, I could bring in some physics here to help the everyday golfer, right?
right.
And how quickly he got that to market is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking you, Marty, how long does it take you to go from idea of a golf club, first look at it, and then it's to market? I mean, what's the timeline for you nowadays in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, a lot longer than Carsten
For sure.
got the Anser out into players' hands.
I mean, is it a year and a half?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, somewhere in that time frame, for like a big scale project.
Gotcha.
But the fact that he could, put so much effort, passion, and he could make things, get things done, do them, and really bring in these physics principles of putting offset, right? I mean,
Right.
that was one of the main things he brought, is
Right.
that you can generate stability by creating a distance between where the player's going to apply the force through their hands and the center of gravity of the club
Right.
with the plumber's
Oh,
neck.
absolutely. Yeah. Offset was that's his innovation.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Rob, let's call it the most unique golf club in the archive room. You could maybe go weirdest, you could go strangest, you could go most different. Now, you did show me the upside down putter, which is my winner already.
Okay. Well,
Because I just like the idea of, can we make it upside down? Sure.
this is probably this is what a lot of collectors feel is the holy grail of Ping collectibles.
Okay.
This is the Ping Trainer.
What's the, do you know roughly year for this?
This would be from like 62, 3.
Okay.
there's supposed to be this one's not quite complete. It doesn't have, there's a wire that comes to a point back here.
Okay.
And there's 2 movable weights here. The idea of the trainer is that where the wire comes to a point, you put a piece of like felt and you dip it in ink, and then on butcher paper, you hit some putts and it draws your stroke.
Interesting.
So when Carsten decided to make his own putter to help his own putting, he wasn't thinking of making putters for sale. He was just wanting to help his own putting. He didn't take up the game of golf till he's in his 40s. And putting was the hard part for him, became the hard, decided that was his weak spot. So he took the putter that he had, which was just a simple blade putter, and he did this wire thing, attached a wire to it. And on butcher paper, he did this little experiment. And what he found out was that no matter how he held the putter, how tightly, or any configuration of how he held the putter, if he didn't hit the putt right in the sweet spot of the putter, or the ball right in the sweet part of the putter, the head twisted at impact. And he could see that because of the drawing. He could literally see a little squiggle.
Okay.
And so that's when he decided that he needed to move the weight to the heel and toe, try to get more weight to the heel and toe.
Interesting.
So the first thing, he went to one of his friends at GE and asked them to make him a blade, a putter head blade out of aluminum. And when he got that, he took it home, and somehow or other he milled out or drilled out areas on the sole, big areas, and he filled those with lead to get the weight to the heel and toe.
Mm-hmm.
And then shafted it up, and sure enough, it worked.
Just a bummer we don't have like video like we have video today of this. I mean, what an unbelievable video this would have been of just like adding lead. I just love the creativity of how can we find a solution to a problem, right? And I mean, just hearing the stories is basically his life work was finding solutions to a problem.
Exactly. So the trainer he came out with in '62 so that people could see what he had seen, when he did this. And also he called it the trainer because he suggested that people put the weight in the center and hit putts. And then after they do that for a little bit, then move it to the heel and toe, and they'd see how much better it was.
Yeah.
And so, I think he was thinking he could do this with a putter, but then he turned out, of course, you couldn't have movable weights then.
Yeah.
So, but it became the trainer. It sold for $22.50. It was in the ads on the magazines and stuff. And he only made one when somebody ordered one. And so a few years ago, one sold at auction for $22,500.
Wow. Yeah.
And it literally, we don't know how many he made. My guess is it's less than 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say Holy Grail, it's really the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many of these in existence.
For ping collectors, this is kind of the Holy Grail. Yeah.
Carsten was such a great storyteller, and he found very unique ways to show the value of the physics that he's bringing in.
Yeah. Always. Yeah. He would show the 1A putter. He would demonstrate that to people with 2 sugar cubes and popsicle sticks.
Yeah. Exactly.
You do a little more than that now, Marty, I think.
Or the Ballnamic shaft.
Yep.
The Ballnamic shaft he would demonstrate to people with a paper clip. He would take a paper clip and bend it like the Ballnamic shaft to show them how the Ballnamic shaft worked.
I mean, Marty, like we've talked so much about innovation in terms of what you're doing now, and I mean, I'm so impressed with kind of the Ping's ability to push the app world forward. I just think that what you guys have done and what's coming has been very, very impressive because you're trying to solve a problem for the golfer at home. The technology's there, but maybe every golfer doesn't understand this. And it feels like, I mean, it's follow the footsteps of Carsten, kind of being under the same roof is maybe it's new age, maybe it's computerized, maybe it's apps, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing.
Absolutely. Us in engineering, we talk about that all the time. And I think it shows the importance of a lot of us that are designers or working on the product. We play golf. We feel the pain of the game,
For sure.
just like Carsten.
Just like Carsten.
And we're trying to come in and solve those. It's kind of personal. We want to, if we can solve it for us, we can solve it for everybody. So we draw a lot of inspiration from that, and it's weaved into the fabric of the company.
Yeah, I mean, John encourages people like Marty and young engineers to come in here
Yeah.
and look around. Just look,
Yeah.
ask some questions.
Pull ideas away. What's interesting is you were showing me before we got going. I mean, there's 7-woods and drivers over there that are 50 inches long, 55 inches long, that are probably 30 years old.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
we have Wedgie Winchester's 5-foot-long driver that he used to win the long drive contest back in the early 80s.
5-foot-long driver.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out driver length fitting today. What's the sweet spot of how long should you?
Will that
should
ever
you go?
extend, Marty? Will it ever get to a place where USGA says it can go longer than, what is it, 45 right now, 44 and a half?
Yeah, well, it's 46 is the condition of competition rule, but usually that's only in play with PGA Tour events and things of that nature, but it still remains at 48. So there are a good number of golfers that do good with over a 46-inch driver because their drivers are so forgiving from a moment of inertia standpoint. Rob, one thing I wanted to ask you about was how the Ballnamic shaft, maybe we could take a look at the Ballnamic shaft there, and then also how the concept of the pistol grip came to be, right?
That's that's a good question. We'll talk about the shaft first, the Ballnamic shaft. So the Ballnamic shaft is actually it has a compound bend, and it's right here. It's kind of under the grip. It bends towards the player and away from the target, and so it's actually easier to see looking from the other end. So you can see how it bends. And just like you were talking about offset,
Yeah.
Karsten's idea was this aligned the player's hands with the ball, not the face of the club.
Yep.
It also helps minimize the toe down effect when you swing the club. And the other thing it does is it actually stabilizes the club at impact. So I can demonstrate that. Hold that, and let me show you how this works. So if I hold the club, lightly between my thumb and finger, and I, if I hit it in the sweet spot, it's pretty stable. If I start to get out here or to here, it's not as stable. Let's see if I can hang on to it better. There we go. You can see it twist. Now, if I hold this above the bend, and now I hit it on the sweet spot, it's great. And I hit it out here, it's way more stable.
Yeah.
And you can actually, if you do this yourself, you can feel that in your fingers. You can actually feel it
The
in your
vibration.
hand, the vibration change. So that's the Ballnamic shaft, and so one of the first people to play this club with the Ballnamic shaft was Joel Goldstrand, and he told a story about, he got his set of clubs with the shaft, Ballnamic shaft, and he took his 7-iron, he went out to the schoolyard, school's out of session, and he had a shag bag, and he said he started hitting 7-irons, and he's out there all by himself, and he said he hit balls for about 15 minutes or so, and he actually picked the club up and looked at it, and he said out loud, "This has got to be illegal," because he hit the ball so straight. Well, unfortunately, the Ballnamic shaft did become non-conforming in '67. The USGA changed the rule on shaft bends so that you couldn't have a bend more than 5 inches from the ground.
Yeah.
And so almost all of Karsten's clubs had a bend, either here or they had a bend down lower, like the putters all had a bend down lower, kind of a double bend that he did and stuff, and a lot of those were more than 5 inches. And so when the rule changed, when the rule went into effect, Karsten didn't have, the only club he had that was conforming was the Anser putter. So he wanted to make things right for people, so he straightened a lot of shafts and did a lot of things to make it right for people. And so it really, literally almost put him out of business. But fortunately, the Anser was such a hot seller right away that the Anser kind of saved the business, I suppose, in a way you could say.
Yeah.
Kind of an answer in more than one way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Rob, do you have a favorite club in here? Like you personally have one? Maybe it's maybe it's a different looking club. Maybe it's one that not many people know much about. Is there one in here that kind of stands out to you?
Boy. I don't know if I have a favorite club. I know the most favorite club that people like to see when they come in
Whoa.
is a croquet putter.
Oh, yes. You know what? I'm not an engineer. That has a bend in the shaft.
Yes, it does.
Almost positive about
So
it.
Carsten did this bend himself with heat. He had to use heat to get it to bend like this. Let's see if I can get it to.
Will it stand up on the right?
Stand up by itself, yeah. So yeah, this was, croquet putting was pretty popular there for a while, and one of the reasons the USGA changed the bend and shaft rule was croquet putting. That was part of it.
Yeah.
And they also put in the rule that you couldn't straddle the line.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's when people come in and I show them things, this is a big hit. Yeah, they get it.
Rob, one thing to notice on this is the
pistol grip we
the
talked
pistol
about.
grip.
Yep.
So give us a little insight into how that came to be. See that, Shane?
Let's see this bad boy. That's heavy too.
Yeah, it is heavy. So Carsten's first putters, the Redwood City, putters made in Redwood City, they had a leather grip, a leather wrap grip. And they did that, the way they made that grip was they actually had a kind of heavy paper, like craft paper kind of stuff. And with that paper and white glue, they built up an underlisting. And so you put a layer on and have to dry overnight, and they put another layer, have to dry. And so it took 3 or 4 days to do a grip, I mean. And so once they had the underlisting and it was dried, then they would make a couple of cuts on a table saw, shape it a little bit, and then Alan is the one that normally would wrap the leather around the grip. Well, Alan joined the Marine Reserves, and he had to go to boot camp. So he did as many grips as he could before he left. So then when they ran out of grips, leather grips, they went to this Golf Pride Informer grip. And so John says, yeah, our production time came way down when we went to the rubber grip. And so this is the grip that they used on a lot of the putters, a lot of the Scottsdale putters.
Yeah.
So then Carsten, because of the Ballnamic shaft being, ruled non-conforming,
Yep.
Carsten designed his own grip, what we call the PP58 now.
Yep.
In those days, we just called it the ping grip way back when it was first designed. With that design of that grip, it's not bored through the center. It's bored off center, and that grip simulates some of the bend, the Ballnamic bend.
Mm-hmm.
And the USGA did outlaw pistol grips. So this grip became non-conforming, and that's when Carsten started designing his grip. And so that grip, the thing we did with the shaft, what I did with the Ballnamic shaft, you can do the same thing with one of our putters and a ping grip. The effect is not quite as much, but you can still feel it in your hands.
Yeah.
So that grip, that PP58 grip, and I think you can tell me because I don't know for sure, but all of our putter grips are now designed kind of that way, right?
Yeah. So that was Carsten's ingenious way, when they changed the rule on the bend in the shaft to get that physics effect, right? And now we've done a lot of research, which turns out a lot of the research we do today, Shane, just proves what Carsten
backs
already
up Carsten's
knew.
ideas.
So now we use that as a fitting variable that if we need to change how the putter rotates and match it perfectly to someone's stroke, we can put them in a grip that has like our PP58 that has more pistol to it that points their hand more towards the center of the club.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Really
it's
fun.
really, yeah.
Rob, you talk about ordering clubs these days for the archive room. What do you do about clubs that didn't make it in here in the 60s and 70s, but you want to acquire them? You want to add it to the archive room, but maybe you don't have one here. How do you go about finding those golf clubs and acquiring them?
Well, generally we will try, if people come to us, I try not to go out looking too much, but people will come to us with something.
Okay.
And
I mean, do you still get surprised? Like, do you still have people that say, I've got this club that you don't have in the room?
I do. I occasionally do. And it's usually a variation of something, because early on, Carsten did what a customer wanted. Carsten would do that for people sometimes. And so occasionally you do get surprised. Like there's a putter right here that I don't think Marty's ever seen. So this is a 1A putter, but a fella asked to have one heavier. And so Carsten actually brazed another piece of bronze.
Oh, yeah.
Made it deeper and heavier, and it has a little flange.
I have not seen that.
No, right. And so, yeah, so there's this came, a guy, called me up and said he had this putter. And so what we'd like to do is trade.
Okay.
Trade new equipment. We don't want to purchase outright if we can help it, but sometimes we do. And, another putter that came to us was George Archer's Anser putter that we believe is the one he used to win the Masters. That's up for debate, but we believe it is the one that he used to win the Masters. And so, that's one that we did buy.
Can I ask about the golf ball?
Sure.
Because nowadays there's a lot of variations of golf balls that are different colors and they have different patterns on them. I mean, this was the OG. This was the original golf ball that had different variations of colorways and all that.
Right.
What was the reasoning for the ping golf ball?
Well, Carsten, he when he decided he wanted to build his own golf ball, he actually bought a company, TrueSphere. I think that's the name of it. He bought them and moved all their equipment, and actually their head engineer, designer came to work for Carsten. I don't know exactly how he came to the idea of the two-color ball, but he called it stroboscopic because he liked the idea you could see it spin. And this is the orange and yellow combination. It was his favorite, and we called it the ping punch, or he called it the ping punch. As we went on, we had yellow and white and pink and white and red and white and different standard colors. With our customization process that Ping has had for a long time, we started doing custom colors for people. We would try to match a color to somebody's logo, and we also could pad print logos on golf balls.
Okay. I mean, I mean, again, like in 2023, this is what you're seeing. You're talking.
And we were doing this back in the 80s.
In the 80s, yeah.
Right. But anyway, so the two-color balls are very collectible, some of them, and depending on the color and stuff, people get all carried away about it. The ball collectors are different than the club collectors. But
you got to deal with both parties.
Yeah, sometimes. The ball collectors have kind of, I understand they want to know how many colors we made, and we don't know because we were custom mixing colors to match logos and stuff. And so so the two-color ball was, and it's a great putting aid, as you guys probably know. And
I will draw mine. So I will get the tool and draw half a golf ball with a Sharpie. I mean, I know they sell golf balls now that you can do that with, but I mean, I will do that. I'll also make my 4-year-old do it too, and then it's not as straight, a little more wonkier.
Before anybody else was doing the two-color ball like they are now, when Lee Westwood came here for a visit one time, it's been, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things, when he was here, he asked for a two-color ball.
For practice?
For practice.
Yeah.
So we found him one.
Rob, fast forward to today. Carsten was kind of famous. He has a video where he's famous for saying that, the golf ball is like the tuning fork for us.
Right.
It tells us what to do on the clubs.
Right.
And so fast forward to today, we made a golf ball fitting
Right.
app software solution, inspired by the name Ballnamic. I know
Right.
just golf balls, flight,
Right, sure.
Carsten,
Yeah.
Aerodynamics. Let's bring it all in.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of have that name for our Ballnamic fitting software. But he knew the importance of marrying ball and club together.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because just the other day, John said something to me where he said, well, the golf ball is what, because I asked him about the golf ball. I asked him what he felt about like the golf ball being cut, the USGA wanting to cut back on the flight or the distance and all that sort of stuff. And he said, well, the ball is our tuning fork.
Mm.
They use the same phrase that Carsten used. And so, it's really interesting. And your ball app is pretty cool.
Yeah.
When James Lee fit me over there for clubs, we went through the ball.
Absolutely. Yep.
Marty will run you through it. We've talked about acquiring clubs and finding golf clubs. Are there clubs that are missing? Do you have any clubs that you could? I mean, this is a PSA. It's a podcast, for goodness sakes. So let the people know what we need.
What we need. Well, yeah, we're missing. We have some holes. We have a few holes. One of them, and most of the older stuff I have. Although I will say any older club, Redwood City Address Club or Scottsdale Address Club, I'm always interested in seeing pictures, because Carsten did do variations, just like I showed you. So I'm always interested in those. As far as one that's missing from our collection, I don't have a Ping 69W putter with a Scottsdale address.
Okay.
Mm.
I've got them with Phoenix address. I don't have one with a Scottsdale address. But the putters I'm actually missing is because, like I mentioned, Dawn Wingert, and she was here, and then she wasn't here, and then I didn't start doing this until 2005. In that period of time, new putters that came out, we didn't get them all.
So you're saying some more modern clubs.
More modern. So G2 putters, G2I, G5I putters. All of those, I have some of those, but not all of them. And there was a number of those models.
Yeah,
too.
we had a lot of models in there.
So yeah, that's something that we're.
So I mean, I'm joking about a PSA, but if somebody had a club and they were interested in showing it to you, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, they can just call the main number.
Main Ping customer service
number. They can ask to speak to me.
Yeah.
Can I call and just ask to speak to you every now and again, just to chat?
Course.
Or okay, just making sure that's okay. Maybe you'll give me.
I'll even give you my.
I was going to say we could actually maybe get the direct line after the pod.
Yeah.
What is your role with the Ping putter vault? Because I can only imagine that you're somehow involved in the gold putter vault. That considering you're the archive guy, you probably have some involvement over there as well.
Well, when we were working on the book, our Ping book. The history.
Marty, I know you're strong. Can you pick that thing up with one arm?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's 7 pounds. So the putter went ping. When we were working on this book, Jeff Ellis, that wrote the book, he actually discovered a number of wins that we had missed. And so
that weren't in the vault.
Weren't in the vault. Mm. And the player didn't have a putter either. And so we went back and tried to pick those up, and we picked up a good number of them, but we haven't actually, some of them we haven't been able to pick up. So my involvement over there is pretty minimal. Sometimes if we need a gold putter, what's happened in the last few years is sometimes we need putter heads to make gold putters with, and if a player wins with a putter that is maybe 4 or 5 years old, we may not have a head. And so I've had to go on eBay and buy some putters for the gold putter to end up in the gold putter vault.
It's true technology chasing. Right. I mean, we're talking about full circle technology here.
Right. Yeah. Because nowadays when we do putters, we don't have the molds, and we can't make another one 10 years later like we used to be able to. Yeah. So it's become a little bit of a problem. We need to get the players to always use a more current model.
There you go. That's a PSA for them. Yeah. Rob, when you sit in your office and you sit in here and you're here every single day looking around, what does it say about your experience with Ping? What has that been like throughout your life?
Well, I always tell people when they call me and they are asking a lot of questions, and they'll say, boy, I'm sorry to bother you. I said, no, you're no bother at all, because I learn as much from them as they learn from me. I really do. So I really enjoy talking to people when and even emailing, although I'm a terrible typist, but I enjoy talking to people about the equipment and, just talking about what we're talking about today, what Carsten did and didn't do. And I'm constantly learning things about Carsten I didn't know, or about Carsten and Louise I didn't know. So it is just a constant learning thing for me, and I enjoy it a lot. Otherwise, I probably would have retired a long time ago, maybe. But well, probably not. I couldn't afford it. But, So yeah, that's So and sometimes, once in a while, Tony Serrano will come over and want to look at a putter because they're talking about making a PLD putter like it or something like that.
Yeah.
And I really do enjoy when people like Marty and Tony and
Yeah.
young guys come in and I can show them this stuff and talk to them about it.
One of my favorite putter projects I worked on coming in here, Rob, was working on the Dale Anser. So when we remade the Dale Anser, and maybe you could tell the story of the difference between the Anser and the Dale. Was, I think, in the collectors call it the Dale head,
Right.
otherwise known as the Dale Anser. Where'd the name Dale come from? What was that little issue on the putter?
Yeah, there's so the Scottsdale Anser, the Anser putters made with a Scottsdale address. There were two masters for that, and those are sandcast putters, and there were two masters. Carsten made the first master, and he asked Alan to make the second master. When Alan was making the second master, cutting on the toe ballast,
Yep.
the back of the putter, cutting on the toe ballast, the mill slipped a little bit. Well, he didn't want to start over, so he decided what he would do on the other side. He made it look like the mistake and kind of evened it out. And he said that, he figured when he got done, Carsten would make him start over anyway.
Right. I might as well lean into the mistake.
Yep.
Right. And so when he showed it to Carsten said, "Nah, it's okay." So there's two masters. And so any putter, any Anser putter with a Phoenix address that's made from one of those masters, because when they first moved from where they were doing Scottsdale address putters, which actually wasn't in Scottsdale, but it was in the county, and the Scottsdale was the closest closest mailbox. But anyway, they moved here to the first building on our campus here. They just changed the address plate to Carsten Company,
Mm-hmm.
and then a little later, Carsten Manufacturing Corporation. And they still were using the Scottsdale Master, but with a different address. So those putters, collectors started referring to those as Dale heads, Scottsdale Dale heads.
Okay.
Well, when we were working on the book and the story that I just told you about Alan talking about how he made the second master, John didn't know this. I remember so well because I asked the question, why are there two masters? And Alan said, "Oh, I know that." And John said, "You do?" And Alan tells a story about what happened, where he made a little mistake. Well, John said, "Oh, your middle name's Dale. That's where the Dale head comes from."
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh, now we have a second reason it's a Dale head."
Alan Dale Solheim, right?
Alan Dale Solheim.
So when I was working on the Dale head in the Anser or Vault 2.0, we relaunched the Dale head, but milled.
Mm-hmm.
We came in here, got a Dale head Anser, 3D scanned it, brought it into our CAD software, and I matched up every little nuance of the mistake on both sides and a bunch of the nuance there.
So cool. I mean,
Really
I love the marriage
Yeah.
of, the vintage club with the new age
Yeah.
club is so cool. And I feel like you guys have done that for a long time. It's
Yeah.
like marrying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things Alan's really proud of too about his putters made from his master is that he saw Sevi someplace one time, and Sevi was talking to him about the Anser and told Alan he'd like to get a Dale head with that what they then called a flat sole, which was the master from Alan's master.
Yeah.
Sevi would like to get a Anser like that.
Yeah.
So Alan knew that Lee McCormick, one of our sales reps, had one. And he called Lee, and Lee gave the putter to Seve. Literally gave the putter to Seve, sent it to Seve.
Yeah.
And then Seve sent Lee a really nice letter thanking him. And so Lee's got that letter,
Really?
framed and everything. But Alan's very proud that Seve wanted that answer from that master.
Seve's got a few putters in the
vault.
In the
Yes.
vault.
I've seen him.
Yeah.
Rob, we've talked about ping collectors. So I got to ask you this as we kind of wind down. What are we talking in terms of most expensive club in this room?
Well, we don't like to get into value. As a ping employees actually are not allowed to appraise or place a value on vintage ping equipment. Now, we have some things in here that are priceless.
Okay.
And so these two original drawings, they're priceless.
Right.
Yeah.
The prototype for the Anser, that's a priceless item. You're not going to replace that for any amount of money. And then, not in here, but in John's closet, he has the first 1A, which is welded up from stainless steel. Again, those are priceless items. Like I mentioned before, the highest price thing I know that sold, at auction was probably this trainer that sold for, about $22,500. So it's, we
so the answer is priceless. I feel like,
priceless,
priceless, and there's multiple items in that regard.
Yeah. And we have all these hand drawings by Carsten, many more than this.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things are, they're just priceless.
Yeah, it's so cool. Marty, you have anything else for Rob?
Who are you rooting for this year, Rob? Suns or Pelicans?
Pelicans, of course.
And why?
Well, my son is the vice president of basketball operations for the New Orleans Pelicans.
When he goes to another team, what do you do with the old team stuff? Is it like, do you donate
moves
it?
to the back of my closet.
So you keep it.
Yeah, because he was GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers
Right.
when they won the championship. So
you can't get rid of that
Can't
stuff.
get rid of
you
that.
talk about priceless. There you go. That's
It is
priceless
priceless,
stuff
yeah.
in your version of this room.
Right.
I caddied years ago at St. Andrews. I caddied there after college when I got out of school. And I had a lady show up one day, and we're on the first tee, and she was wearing this shirt, and it had all these course logos on, brand logos on the shirt. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. She was a pretty good player, hit it down the middle of the fairway, 220 or something, and we went up there. We're about 3 holes in. I go, hey, listen, what's the deal with the shirt?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, Annika Sorenstam's my neighbor. And every time she gets a new brand or she gets a new sponsor, she just brings all the old shirts over to me. So that's kind of paying it forward, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, this has been really, really interesting. I mean, this room is unbelievable. I've never been in here before. I mean, this is my first
We'll see. You can come back.
visit here. I will be coming back. I was taking pictures of some of the lefty irons over there to show my dad because, I know he had a set of those. What are the beryllium ones? What was that?
Beryllium copper.
Yeah, he had a set of those when I first started playing golf. I remember he had a set of those irons in his bag, so I'll have to send him a picture. But we appreciate the time and the insight because this has been
My
very,
pleasure.
very cool.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Always fun.
Yeah, this is the Ping Proving Grounds podcast.